What if a coin sitting quietly in your collection is worth far more than you ever imagined? Some ordinary-looking coins hide rare varieties, remarkable mint errors, and incredible value in the smallest details. The real treasure may not be buried underground. It could already be in your pocket, waiting to be discovered. Today, we're following the clues that collectors use to separate common coins from truly special finds. Thank you for your precious time and amazing support. Let's begin the hunt. Imagine finding a small copper-colored coin in an old jar, a pocket, or a forgotten drawer, and realizing that it was struck during a year when America was remembering one of its most important presidents on a truly historic scale. At first glance, the 2009 Lincoln Bicentennial 1-cent coin looks ordinary. It is only worth 1 cent in spending power, but turn it over and the story changes. This was not just another Lincoln cent. In 2009, the United States Mint transformed the reverse of the cent 4 times to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln cent itself. The Denver Mint struck examples carrying the small D mint mark, and each reverse represented a different chapter of Lincoln's life. His birth and childhood in Kentucky, his formative years in Indiana, his professional life in Illinois, and his presidency in Washington, D.C. The timing makes this coin even more fascinating. In 2009, America was moving through a period of enormous change. The country was dealing with the aftermath of a severe financial crisis, while a new presidential administration had just taken office, and the nation was looking toward the future. Yet the Mint was deliberately looking backward, placing Lincoln's life onto pocket change so that millions of Americans could carry pieces of that history without even realizing it. The first design, released around Lincoln's February 12 birthday, showed the log cabin associated with his humble Kentucky beginnings. The second portrayed his self-education during his formative Indiana years. The third represented his professional life in Illinois, while the final design showed the unfinished United States Capitol dome, symbolizing the nation divided by civil war and Lincoln's determination to preserve it. Look closely at the coin itself, and you can see how the familiar and the historic meet. The obverse retained Victor David Brenner's famous portrait of Lincoln, the same basic portrait introduced in 1909. Around him are the inscriptions "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and 2009. On the reverse, the design depends on which of the 4 2009 chapters you are holding. The D beneath the date on the obverse identifies Denver as the mint of origin. These circulation coins were made from copper-plated zinc, with a composition of 2.5% copper and 97.5% zinc. The standard specifications are 2.5 grams in weight, 19.05 millimeters in diameter, about 1.52 millimeters thick, and a plain edge. And this is where collectors begin to see the 2009 D cent differently. The challenge is not simply finding a 2009 cent with a D. There are 4 distinct reverse designs to identify, and some are substantially scarcer in high certified grades than their enormous production numbers might suggest. For example, NGC records 350.4 million Denver examples for the birth and childhood design, and 363.6 million for formative years, while the presidency design had a mintage of 198 million. That does not make an ordinary circulated example rare, but it creates an intriguing collecting challenge, finding attractive, sharply struck, original examples, and completing the entire 4-design Denver set. Then there is the world of errors and varieties, where caution becomes essential. Genuine mint errors can make a modern cent more desirable, but not every strange-looking coin is an error. Weak lettering, scratches, plating problems, discoloration, damage, or ordinary machine-made imperfections can easily be mistaken for valuable varieties. Collectors should examine the date, mint mark, lettering, design details, rim, and overall strike under good magnification, but claims of dramatic value should be backed by established references or professional attribution. The 2009 D series also includes special satin finish examples produced for United States Mint collector sets, which are different from ordinary circulation strikes and should not automatically be confused with them. PCGS auction records show that some certified 2009 D satin finish pieces have brought meaningful premiums, demonstrating why finish and variety matter. Condition is where the story can change dramatically. A circulated 2009 D cent generally remains close to face value, while attractive uncirculated examples can bring modest premiums. NGC's current information illustrates this difference across the individual designs, with ordinary high-grade pieces sometimes valued at only a few dollars, while exceptional certified specimens can be worth considerably more. The Presidency design is an especially interesting example. NGC currently lists substantial premiums at the highest grades, and documented auction records include a 2009 D Presidency cent graded MS68 red that realized $4,700 in 2016. That is a real historical sale, not a fantasy price, but it represents an exceptional certified coin rather than the typical example found in circulation. For anyone who believes they have something special, preservation matters. Do not clean the coin, polish it, scrape away spots, or try to make it look newer. Those actions can permanently reduce collector appeal. Handle it by the edges, protect it in an inert holder, and photograph unusual features before sending it anywhere. If the potential value is significant, professional authentication and grading from respected services, such as PCGS or NGC, can provide an independent assessment of condition and authenticity. For selling, established coin dealers, reputable numismatic auction companies, and well-established collector marketplaces are generally safer choices than relying on dramatic claims from strangers. The key is evidence. A real error, a genuine high grade, and a documented market are far more important than an exciting story. Ultimately, the 2009 D Lincoln Bicentennial cent is fascinating because it compresses an entire American life into 4 tiny reverses. One coin recalls a humble beginning, another a young man's struggle to educate himself, another his rise in Illinois, and the final one places him in Washington during the nation's darkest crisis. Most examples will never become spectacularly valuable, and that honesty is part of what makes collecting rewarding. You are not simply hunting for a fortune, you are hunting for history, condition, rarity, and the one overlooked detail that separates an ordinary coin from an extraordinary collectible. Somewhere in a collection, roll, or old box, a 2009 D cent may still be waiting to be examined with fresh eyes, but this remarkable coin is only the beginning. Now let's move to our second coin, where the story becomes even more fascinating. And after uncovering the story behind the previous coin, we now arrive at a piece of pocket change that seems almost too ordinary to deserve a second glance. But that is exactly where this hunt becomes interesting. In 2009, the United States Mint placed the life of Abraham Lincoln into the hands of millions of Americans through 4 completely different reverse designs, created to mark the bicentennial of his birth and the centennial of the Lincoln cent. Among those coins was the Denver minted example carrying the small d. At first, it looks like a modern penny you might spend without thinking. But hold it beneath a light, turn it slowly, and the ordinary appearance begins to reveal something much more important. This little coin is a miniature timeline of American history, struck at a moment when the country itself was experiencing enormous change. The year 2009 was already a remarkable chapter in American life. The nation was emerging from a major financial crisis, a new president had taken office, and conversations about America's future filled newspapers and television screens. At the same time, the Mint was asking Americans to remember where the nation had come from. Lincoln's 200th birthday offered the perfect opportunity. Rather than placing a single commemorative image on the cent, the Mint created 4 different reverses, each representing a stage in Lincoln's life. The Denver D coins followed the same 4-part journey: his birth and childhood, his formative years in Indiana, his professional life in Illinois, and finally his presidency in Washington. The result was a circulating history lesson that could pass from one person's hand to another without anyone needing to enter a museum. Look closer at the coin itself. On the obverse is Victor David Brenner's familiar portrait of Lincoln, accompanied by In God We Trust, Liberty, and the date 2009. Beneath the date sits the tiny D, identifying the Denver Mint. Flip the coin over and the reverse tells you which chapter you are holding. The 4 designs were created by different artists and approved through the Mint's design process, transforming a denomination that had carried the Lincoln Memorial for decades. The ordinary circulation version was copper-plated zinc, consisting of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper, with a weight of 2.5 grams, a diameter of 19.05 millimeters, a thickness of roughly 1.52 millimeters, and a plain edge. These specifications may sound technical, but to a serious collector, they become clues, details that help separate a genuine mint product from damage or an altered coin. And then comes the part that makes collectors slow down, the minting process. Blank planchets were prepared, struck under tremendous pressure between dies, inspected, counted, and released into circulation. During that journey, tiny imperfections could sometimes appear. A collector examining a 2009 cent might notice an unusual strike, plating issue, doubled-looking lettering, off-center appearance, clipped planchet, or another abnormal feature. But this is where patience matters. A strange mark is not automatically a valuable mint error. Many unusual-looking cents simply suffered damage after leaving the mint. Genuine errors must be evaluated according to how and when the abnormality could have occurred during production. For particularly interesting pieces, professional attribution is far safer than assuming that every unusual feature represents a rare variety. The four reverse designs themselves are the major collectible varieties of the regular 2009 D series. The birth and childhood reverse depicts the Kentucky log cabin associated with Lincoln's early life. The formative years design represents his Indiana years, including the period in which he developed through self-education and hard work. Professional life moves the story to Illinois, where Lincoln's career and political ambitions developed. Then comes presidency, showing the unfinished United States Capitol dome, a powerful image associated with a nation struggling through civil war. Together, these four designs create something unusual in modern coinage, a complete narrative sequence. Collectors can pursue one example of each design, search for exceptional strikes, or concentrate on high-grade red examples. Condition, however, is where the value story becomes much more complicated. A normal circulated 2009 D cent is generally not a valuable coin simply because it is part of the bicentennial series. In contrast, sharply preserved red uncirculated examples can command premiums, particularly at the highest certified grades. Actual auction records show the difference. PCGS records include a 2009 D birth and childhood MS65 red example selling for $10.50, while a 2009 D formative years MS66 red example has recorded sales in the single to double-digit range. At the extreme end, exceptional certified coins can bring far more. NGC's auction database records a 2009 D presidency MS68 red at $4,700 in 2016, and a 2009 D professional life MS67 red at $2,499.20. Those are genuine documented results, but they represent exceptional certified coins, not what most collectors should expect from a penny found in circulation. That is why grading becomes so important. PCGS and NGC examine factors such as surface preservation, strike quality, color designation, and overall condition when assigning grades. A coin that appears brilliant to the naked eye may reveal tiny marks under magnification, while another can preserve unusually clean surfaces and strong detail. If you believe your 2009 D is exceptional, resist the temptation to clean it. Cleaning can leave permanent hairlines and destroy the original surface that collectors value. Instead, hold it by the edges, store it in a suitable protective holder, and keep it away from harsh chemicals and unnecessary handling. If an unusual error or exceptionally high grade seems possible, professional authentication and grading can provide a much stronger basis for understanding what you actually have. And when the time comes to sell, the same principle applies. Let evidence lead the story. Reputable coin dealers and established numismatic auction companies can be appropriate for significant pieces, while ordinary examples may simply be worth keeping as part of a complete 2009 collection. The most important lesson is that rarity is not created by an exciting headline. It is created by scarcity, condition, authenticity, demand, and documented results. The 2009 D. Lincoln Bicentennial Cent may have been made in enormous numbers, but its finest survivors and genuine errors that can be properly authenticated are where the deeper collecting story begins. Now that we've uncovered the secrets of this coin, it's time to move on to coin number 3, where an even rarer story awaits. And just when the trail seems familiar, the next coin changes one small detail that can completely change the way you look at it. Our countdown now moves from Denver to Philadelphia, and that means the tiny letter we were watching for on the previous coin has disappeared. In its place is something collectors sometimes overlook entirely: no mint mark. This is the 2009 United States Lincoln Bicentennial 1-cent coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint, carrying the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and one of 4 historic reverse designs on the back. To an untrained eye, it can look almost identical to its Denver counterpart. But in the world of coin collecting, that missing letter is itself a clue, pointing toward one of America's oldest minting facilities and a special moment in the history of the Lincoln cent. The story begins with Abraham Lincoln himself. 2 centuries after his birth, the United States was preparing to commemorate a president whose life had become inseparable from the nation's history. The year 2009 also marked 100 years since Lincoln's portrait first appeared on the cent in 1909. Instead of simply producing another year of Lincoln Memorial cents, the United States Mint created 4 new reverse designs representing major chapters in his life. The first showed his birthplace and childhood in Kentucky. The second represented his formative years in Indiana. The third depicted his professional life in Illinois, and the fourth portrayed the unfinished United States Capitol during his presidency. Suddenly, a coin worth 1 cent had become a miniature biography, moving through Lincoln's life, one reverse at a time. Now turn the coin over and examine the familiar portrait. Victor David Brenner's Lincoln remained on the obverse, surrounded by "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 2009. But look beneath the date. There is no D, no S, and no other mint letter. That empty space identifies Philadelphia as the production facility for this circulation issue. The regular 2009 Lincoln cent was made from a copper-plated zinc composition containing 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper. It weighs 2.5 grams, measures 19.05 millimeters across, is approximately 1.52 millimeters thick, and has a plain edge. These measurements may seem like dry technical details, but they can become useful tools when examining a suspicious coin. An unexpected weight, altered edge, or unusual surface can sometimes tell a much bigger story. And that is where the treasure hunt begins. The no-mint mark 2009 cents were produced in enormous quantities, so simply finding one is not enough to make it rare. What collectors search for are the 4 legitimate reverse designs, exceptional preservation, and genuine mint-made errors or varieties. A coin might show an off-center strike, a clipped planchet, a striking-related anomaly, or another production error, but identifying a real mint error requires careful examination. Damage occurring after the coin leaves the mint can imitate many of these characteristics. Even apparent doubling must be studied carefully, because machine doubling and other forms of distortion are not automatically valuable doubled dies. The safest approach is to compare the coin with reliable references, and when the evidence is compelling, seek professional attribution rather than trusting an online claim that promises extraordinary money. The 4 Philadelphia reverses create another fascinating collecting challenge. Birth and childhood carries the log cabin scene associated with Lincoln's earliest years. Formative years moves the story to Indiana, where Lincoln's youth and self-education shaped the man he would become. Professional life brings us into Illinois, representing his career before the presidency. Finally, presidency presents the unfinished Capitol Dome, a dramatic symbol of the country Lincoln inherited and fought to preserve. Collectors can assemble all 4 Philadelphia designs, compare them with the Denver issues, or search specifically for high-grade examples with brilliant original red color. The remarkable part is that these are not separate commemorative medals sitting behind glass. They were ordinary cents intended to circulate through everyday American life. But condition is where the value picture becomes much more interesting. Most circulated 2009 Philadelphia Lincoln bicentennial cents are worth little more than face value, and even many uncirculated examples command only modest premiums. The serious money is concentrated in exceptional grades, unusual certified pieces, and genuine errors. Professional grading services, such as PCGS and NGC, evaluate factors including surface preservation, strike quality, luster, and color. On copper-plated zinc cents, the red designation is particularly important for uncirculated examples because original color can significantly affect collector appeal. A spectacular-looking coin may still have tiny marks that prevent it from reaching the highest grades, while a carefully preserved piece can become much more desirable. The lesson is simple: never judge a modern cent's value from appearance alone. If you believe you have an exceptional specimen, preservation should begin immediately. Do not polish it, wipe it with abrasive material, or use household chemicals to improve its appearance. Even fingerprints and careless handling can affect the surface over time. Hold the coin by its edges, keep it in a suitable non-damaging holder, and store it somewhere dry and stable. For a suspected mint error or unusually high-grade example, professional authentication and grading from a respected service, such as PCGS or NGC, can establish a credible condition assessment. If you eventually decide to sell, reputable coin dealers, established numismatic auction companies, and recognized collector marketplaces are preferable to anyone promising an enormous price simply from a photograph. Let documented evidence, certification, and comparable sales determine the value. There is something deeply satisfying about this particular coin because its most noticeable feature is actually something that is not there. No mint mark, no dramatic rarity claim, just a small blank space beneath Lincoln's portrait, quietly revealing that the coin came from Philadelphia. Yet within that ordinary-looking piece of metal are 4 chapters of American history, millions of moments of everyday commerce, and the possibility of finding an unusually preserved example or genuine mint error hiding in plain sight. That is what makes the hunt worthwhile. The goal is not to believe every exciting story attached to a penny. It is to learn enough to recognize the real story when you finally encounter it. And if you thought this coin was extraordinary, wait until you see our final coin. Let's move to the last chapter of today's countdown. And now, after following the trail from Philadelphia and uncovering the stories hidden behind those seemingly ordinary cents, we have reached the final chapter of today's countdown. But this time, look for one tiny letter, the D. It may seem insignificant, almost easy to overlook, yet that small mark tells us that this coin was struck at the Denver Mint. This is the 2009 United States Lincoln bicentennial 1-cent coin, and its importance reaches far beyond its 1-cent face value. In the right hands, it becomes a time capsule from a remarkable year, a tribute to Lincoln, and a reminder that some of the most interesting pieces of American history can still be found where nobody thinks to look. The year 2009 brought together 2 important anniversaries. It marked the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln cent itself. Instead of treating the occasion like an ordinary anniversary, the United States Mint redesigned the reverse of the cent 4 different times during the year. Each design represented a different chapter of Lincoln's journey. One recalled his birth and childhood in Kentucky, another represented his formative years in Indiana, a third illustrated his professional life in Illinois, and the final design showed the unfinished United States Capitol during his presidency. For collectors, the 4 reverses transformed an ordinary denomination into a chronological journey through one of the most important lives in American history. Turn the coin over, and the portrait immediately feels familiar. Lincoln's image on the obverse is based on the classic design by Victor David Brenner, which had appeared on the cent since 1909. Around that portrait are "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 2009, while the small d beneath the date identifies Denver. The regular circulation coin was made from copper-plated zinc, containing 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper. It weighs 2.5 grams, measures 19.05 millimeters in diameter, is approximately 1.52 millimeters thick, and has a plain edge. Those numbers might sound insignificant, but they provide a fingerprint for the coin. When collectors investigate an unusual example, weight, dimensions, surfaces, and edge characteristics can help reveal whether the coin is normal, damaged, altered, or potentially affected by a genuine minting error. And this is where the final treasure hunt becomes more complicated. The 2009 Lincoln Bicentennial Cent is not automatically rare simply because it is a commemorative year coin. Millions were produced, and ordinary circulated examples generally have little premium over face value. The real excitement comes from the 4 legitimate reverse designs, exceptional condition, special finishes, and genuine mint errors. A collector might encounter an off-center strike, clipped planchet, missing or incomplete design detail caused during production, or another legitimate striking or planchet error. But caution is essential. Post-mint damage can create scratches, dents, discoloration, plating problems, and shapes that look dramatic but have little numismatic value. Even supposed doubled lettering should be examined carefully rather than automatically labeled a valuable doubled die. For collectors chasing the finest examples, condition becomes the battlefield. PCGS and NGC examine coins for surface preservation, strike quality, luster, color, and other characteristics before assigning a numerical grade. On copper-plated zinc cents, original red color is particularly important when evaluating uncirculated examples. Most circulated 2009 cents remain inexpensive, and many ordinary uncirculated pieces carry only modest premiums. But exceptional certified specimens can be a different story. Documented auction results show that top-grade examples of individual 2009 bicentennial reverses have reached hundreds or even thousands of dollars, including a 2009 presidency example, graded MS68 red, that realized $4,700 in a documented 2016 sale. That result should not be mistaken for the normal value of a 2009 cent. It represents an unusually high-grade certified coin. The lesson is powerful. Condition and rarity matter far more than the date alone. If you think you have discovered one of these special pieces, the next step should never be cleaning it. A polished or chemically treated cent may look brighter, but its original surface can be permanently damaged. Handle the coin by its edges and protect it in an appropriate holder. If the coin appears to have an unusual mint error or extraordinary preservation, professional authentication and grading from a respected service, such as PCGS or NGC, can establish credibility. Serious collectors can buy and sell certified examples through established coin dealers, reputable numismatic auction companies, and recognized collector marketplaces. Before accepting a price, compare the exact date, mint mark, reverse design, grade, color designation, and previous sales of comparable coins. A dramatic claim is not evidence, a documented market is. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden inside this little Denver cent. Its story is not really about getting rich from a penny. It is about learning to look closer. Lincoln's life began in circumstances that seemed ordinary, yet his story became part of the identity of an entire nation. A century later, his portrait returned to the cent in 4 different scenes, allowing everyday Americans to carry fragments of that history in their pockets. Somewhere between a cash register, an old collection, a forgotten jar, or a family drawer, one of these coins may still be waiting to be noticed, not because every example is rare, but because every example has a story. So before you throw that old jar of coins aside, before you empty your pockets without looking, take another moment, turn the coins over, check the dates, look for the mint marks, study the details, because the real reward of collecting is not simply the price printed on an auction result. It is the moment when an ordinary object suddenly connects you to a moment in American history. If you enjoyed this journey, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories from the world of rare and collectible coins. And keep searching through your collection, because the next remarkable coin may not be sitting in a museum, it could already be waiting somewhere in your home. Until the next hunt, keep looking closely, because history has a way of hiding in plain sight.